for your time. It's great to be here in Dubai for the Diaspora Forum for Good. So I'm here as part of the New Voices group. These are a group of young leaders from across the world who are doing things in their own different fields. And we're really coming together to convene, to share about what we're doing and see how we can help each other. And it's an incredible opportunity to meet people, not just young voices, but accomplished leaders from various different parts of the spectrum, to see how we could work together. So since the election, I've started working in the private sector, working on a startup around cybersecurity and AI. I think what I realized is, before I ran for office, I worked in the federal government on cybersecurity and election security. And now is the time more than ever where we need to help companies and organizations make sure that they're more secure and make sure that we're taking the advantages we're learning from artificial intelligence and AI and applying them to what we need as well. So I've been working on that more recently. There's a lot of opportunity in the private sector to go and do that kind of work, especially given the further threats we're facing from across the world today. Yeah, AI is always, it's been a buzzword, and it's become even a bigger buzzword these days. There's a lot of hype as to what AI can and can't do. We should realize that artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, since the 60s, since computing really started. The thing is, the algorithms are getting better and better. They're able to take unstructured data which isn't necessarily structured in the forms of spreadsheets or code, and it's able to make sense of it using patterns that they can learn from training data. And that's really the change that's happening here. So even, for example, for cybersecurity, traditionally a lot of different tools have been very good at detecting vulnerabilities, but now with AI, we're able to actually generate code and fix vulnerabilities. So my goal here is, how could we protect the defenders, people who are running critical systems, whether it's election systems, whether it's hospitals, other industry, and being able to use the AI advances to further increase our defenses, because the attackers and hackers are continuing to use it on the offense. Elections have consequences, and we've been seeing those consequences in the past couple of months. Ultimately, the American people we're getting what we voted for. One thing we should realize, though, is we need to make sure that power should always be held accountable, regardless of who you voted for. You want to make sure that those in power are protecting what's important for us. We have to make sure that we protect our civil servants, people who are working in government, especially folks who work on things, whether it's national security, cybersecurity, election security, providing benefits to people. I used to work in the government, and I know how hard these public servants work, and we need to make sure we continue to recognize their work and their efforts, and that's what we have to continue to do. We need to stay vigilant and ensure that our government is responsive to the kind of work which we want them to do. It was an incredible experience, because ultimately, when I started to run for office, I knew that win or lose, we're making a huge impact, because really no one really expected someone like me with my kind of background, whether it's me, my parents coming from India, like Indian American, whether it's someone who has a technology and AI background coming and actually running for state senate. So I know that we've made that impact. There have been so many people across the country got inspired from the work we were doing, whether it's young people, Gen Z, realizing that we can make this kind of impact, whether it's folks in technology, realizing here's how we can actually make government work better for us. And now I know that there's going to be many more people in the future who follow in these footsteps and continue to run. So I am committed to staying involved and helping folks who want to run for office, and really ensuring that the next generation of people are able to make the impact that they want to have. But ultimately, a lot of things are outside of control in an election. There's a lot of things happening at the national level, at the state level, and as something which I always learned growing up when I studied the Bhagavad Gita, about always the action is what matters the most, even more than the result. So as long as we focus on doing our best and leaving the rest to a higher power, then we know that what we're doing is all that we can do, and we should just continue to fight for what we believe in. Yeah, I think when I look back, politics is, a lot of it is, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of attacks, but what we have to do is we have to focus on the positivity. The fact that there were so many young people who were so inspired by the work I was doing, even though there's always people who try to drag you down, who try to divide us by race, by religion, by color. America is bigger than that, right? We've always been a country of immigrants. We've always been a country where we're able to come together regardless of where we come from, what our backgrounds are. And that's what I really saw, which was so incredibly amazing. I would say that all the pushback against the attacks I faced was so great to see, because I knew that there's so many people who support the kinds of work I do and realize that we need more people like me and from all kinds of backgrounds to step up and serve our country. Absolutely. There's such an incredible set of talent here. These are people from across the world, many people from the US, from folks from Dubai, India, UK. Everyone is working in all kinds of great fields. I think one thing to realize is that young people are our future. Right? We're the ones who end up taking these positions of power and actually going and making an impact in the world. And every single role is so important. Whether someone is working in the private sector, whether someone like me running for office, whether it's people starting a startup, working on AI and the new kinds of fields, it's so important to realize that this is our future. And these are folks who need to continue to be empowered. We actually had a panel the other day, yesterday, where I spoke along with a couple other folks about our own experiences. And one thing which we actually had a conversation with was what the various other more veteran business leaders in the audience. They asked us, how can we actually help you do the work you're doing? And we talked about what we could do, and especially we mentioned that senior leaders need to think about how can they empower the young people within their own organizations, because that vitality is needed. That's how we make change and how we continue to be nimble and make impact. One thing is what folks who have more seniority have is they have the experience, right? They've been working for decades and decades in a particular field. So they have the network, they have the connections, they're able to take the young people have the enthusiasm and the ability to think more differently because they haven't been around for as long. And you can see how that can be really helpful, whether it's a startup in Silicon Valley disrupting an existing field, or whether it's a young politician going and running and saying, we can do this because I believe it's possible. So we need to combine those two together, right? Combine the seniority of the folks who have been around for a while and learn from their mistakes, but also have the enthusiasm and energy from the young people as well. It's really important that young people are taken seriously. This is something where it was initially difficult in politics because a lot of people were skeptical. They thought, why should a 25-year-old go and run? Right. You're so young, right? And I think our campaign proved that wrong. We showed that no matter how young you are, if you're doing the right thing and you're thinking about things deliberately in the right way, you can be successful and really be a good representative for your people. And we need to have more of that trust. And it kind of goes both ways, right? The folks who are more senior need to realize to bring more young people into the decision-making process. And young people should also learn from those in senior positions. I think what we see a lot of changes in our country. And I think what we should think about for the young generation is really thinking about where does our next generation of talent go to serve our country. I think for a long time, there's always been a tension between the best and brightest young people. Should they be going and working in the private sector, going and starting startups, working in technology or finance or these other fields, or should they go and work in public service? And for a long time, and especially what I was doing by working in the government, was bringing more folks to public service because it's just so important. And I think what we've seen now is just realizing that there just are many different ways of making an impact. I mean, we've seen how civil servants now, it's much harder to work in the government because people are always doubting you. They're saying, why should you be working here? In fact, a lot of the employees who have been fired from the federal government are some of the young, talented people who gave up jobs in Silicon Valley in order to go and actually do a fellowship in the government. And so I think what we're just seeing now is it's a shift where there's a lot of young people are realizing that, hey, maybe right now the right time to make an impact is actually going and working in the private sector or other kinds of institutions, building up what we can do ourselves, because we can't always rely on the existing institutions to protect us and give us opportunities. So it's both the benefits and the drawbacks, right? The drawbacks being it's much harder to go now and do public service because of all the different politics going around. But at the same time, there's so many young people I know, people who used to work with me in the government in DC, who are now starting their own companies, who are starting their own think tanks and really creating something new. So that's what we should be thinking about, is how can we continue to start creating new things and do what we believe in.